Hey guys, my name is Carla Grace. I am a full-time wildlife artist and I've just completed my new Grizzly Bear tutorial. In this sneak peek, I will demonstrate how to paint the base tones for the Grizzly Bear's head. My process involves applying mid-tone values to the bear's face and adjusting shades as I see them. I apply thick paint for opacity on textured fur areas and vary the tones to add depth. To finish the base layers, I start switching between warm and cool tones for areas like the nose to ensure color variation. I show a step-by-step process on how to layer the paint efficiently, achieving a beautiful painting in less time while still being realistic. My process makes acrylic paint easy to work with, vibrant, and takes all the guesswork out of the color mixes. Now I'll show you the full section from the tutorial and I'll see you at the end. So I'm going to begin by applying a general application of a mid-tone value that is on the darker side. So not a pure burnt umber, but a really flat application of mid-tone value that matches the area that I'm working on. So I'm going to adjust that mid-tone value according to what I see. And it's just going to be slight variations of that main mid-tone that we mixed at the start. So watch as I apply this mid-tone, and you'll see that when I get around the contour of the face closer to the nose, that I'll change my application from a really warm burnt umber, burnt sienna base mid-tone mix to a slightly cooler, more gray version with the raw umber added to it. And you'll see the change in that tone and how that affects the overall look of the painting. Having that variation in there does add a more interesting element to the artwork. So I do recommend that, even though it is a pain in the butt to constantly change the values, to do so and adapt it as you go. I'm still using my filbert size 2 and I'm using the flat of the brush to create these marks, still following the general look of the fur, working in a fairly thick application of paint so that it is as opaque as I can make it in the first application. So straight away, it's already a clear color from the start. When it gets to the parts of the face where the fur is very dry and quite refined, almost perfect, I'm just going to essentially dry brush that in, and I'll use the bristles to create the look of the fur. If your filbert isn't quite big enough and you find that you are needing to add more to your brush to create broader applications of the paint, then switch over to a larger filbert and that should be fine. So to demonstrate, for example, I'll switch over to a larger one. So switching over to my size 4, and I can move that paint on there a lot quicker, and it's not changing the overall look of how I'm moving the paint on there. So if you can use a bigger brush, I highly recommend it because it'll save you some time. So where the fur is the lightest, you can allude to that by applying a thinner application of this mid-tone rather than creating a lighter version at this stage. We will come in with a lighter version, but just to save time, not having to stop right now and mix more paint, I'm just going to make that a slightly lighter area of paint. So we're showing more of that base tone from the gesso of the panel in the paint, really, and it's just shining through. So make sure you just follow the direction of the fur, because you'll be able to see those marks in the paint as your brush leaves the panel. So I'm going to bring in a few darker values here in the sort of bridge between the eyes, because there is more shadow here and I'm just wanting to create a definite space here that I know that I can work with going forward that has the right zone in it. So I'm zoning off areas of color as I go. Let's just get rid of as much of that white as we can. And once again, going to a darker value as I start to encroach on the nose, which is full of different colored browns here. So this is going to be a little bit more tricky to paint. All right, now I need to start moving the paint across the rest of the nose, but I also need to do it across the cheek here. And there are quite a few variations of tone and texture here as it moves from the wet fur to the dry fur. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover up all the white and then I'm going to come in with more depth to create those changes in the values. And I'm going to need some more burnt umber. Just make sure my brush is wet. And now let's extend this darker tone. Just make sure to follow the hair as much as possible. And now I'm going to use a more grey version on the muzzle here. And I'm going to create that grey version using raw umber, a little bit of titanium white, and let's see how that looks. Pretty good. Let's apply it to the painting and then make the judgment call from there. To me, that works as a base. It's not perfect. It could have a little bit of the burnt umber off to the side. And we have the raw umber on that side there. So there's like a little mixture between the two. But you can see that the raw umber still allows some of that warm brown tones to come through, but it does have a little bit more of that grey look to it. So I'm just going to apply this tone quite generally where I see it. And now I'm going to switch back to a warmer version and bring that in to the muzzle again. So we're essentially blocking in as we go. We could have done all these blocking in layers all together at the start of the painting, which is a great way to do it. So go ahead with that if that's what you want to do. I like to do that myself sometimes. I'm just showing you a different variation in sort of painting these portraits, because what I've done now by sort of doing it section by section is I've sort of figured out the colors from parts of the painting that have less impact on the overall finish of the artwork. And then I've been able to carry that knowledge into the parts of the painting where it does impact the colors. So there are benefits to doing it both ways. We have almost gotten rid of all of the white tones. And we will come in and fix up the shape of the nose when we focus more intently on the nose of the bear, which will happen very shortly, as that will be the next section that I would like to get finished. So I'm going to switch over to my round size 0 to re-establish the outline of the nose and the mouth to get that into the right spot. And then I can start adding some different values, some light and some dark, and then start to sort of fix a little bit on the side here and then really focus on the nose itself to get that to a point where it looks finished and we can be happy with it. So my round size 0 is slightly bigger than the 00, obviously, and I'm just using a bigger brush to make the application of paint a little bit faster. I'm going to use Mars Black first and start working on the areas where the paint is going to be the darkest. So the deepest shadow. Thanks so much for watching. I hope it was helpful. For the full tutorial, please follow the link in the description. Remember to subscribe to see more tips and art from me, and I'll see you next time.